I was 15 in 2016, and it was supposed to be my last year trick-or-treating. I want to make it count. My mom's always been pretty laid back, so I planned a full weekend. A sleepover with my friends Davis and Zach the night before Halloween, skipping school on Halloween day, trick-or-treating that night, then ending it with a sleepover with my girlfriend, Amber. Our basement had just been renovated into a man cave, so obviously that's where my friends and I decided to crash. The only problem was the long hallway leading to it. The light switch was broken, and walking through it always felt eerie. For a horror movie weekend, though, that felt perfect. After my mom baked us cookies, we settled in and watched Scream. Around 11 p.m., we started our second movie, Paranormal Activity. None of us had seen it before. About 30 seconds into the movie, the motion light in the backyard flicked on, flooding the basement with pale light. The sudden brightness ruined the atmosphere, so I paused the movie. When it turned off again, we started it back up, only for the light to come on again. By the third time, I was irritated. Davis asked, "What keeps setting it off?" I told him I had no idea, but after the light came on again, I paused the movie and told him to come upstairs with me to check it out. We stood by the back door, waiting in the dark, but saw nothing. After 5 minutes, we gave up and went back downstairs, deciding to just hang out on our phones instead. A couple of hours later, Davis and Zach were asleep, and I was the only one still awake, scrolling through my phone. Then that familiar glow washed over the room again, the motion light. I figured it was just some neighborhood kids messing around, but curiosity got the better of me. When I looked outside, the yard was empty. No wind, no movement, just stillness. I gave up, shut off my phone, and went to sleep. The next night came faster than I expected. Trick-or-treating felt bittersweet, like the end of my childhood. I tried to focus on the fun instead. Amber came with me, and everything went great until we reached one of the last houses. She suddenly screamed and grabbed her leg. Someone had thrown a rock at her. When I turned around, I saw him, a man standing about 15 feet away, wearing a clown mask. It was during that weird clown epidemic that year. So, at first, I thought it was just someone trying to be funny. But something about him felt off. He didn't move, didn't wave, just stood there, staring. "Get lost!" I yelled, but he didn't react. He wasn't dressed like a clown, really, just a mask with normal clothes. That somehow made it worse. We decided to skip the last few houses and head home. By the time Amber and I got back to my place, it was just the two of us in the basement, sorting through our candy. She asked to watch a movie, so I figured we might as well finish Paranormal Activity. Halfway through, during a quiet scene, the lights suddenly went out. The whole basement went black. Amber gasped. My stomach dropped. Our power never went out unless there was a storm, but the weather app said everything was clear. Trying to stay calm, I told her to wait in the basement while I checked the generator in the backyard, but she refused to stay down there alone. We stepped outside, and I immediately noticed the motion light wasn't working anymore. The yard felt darker than usual. Crickets chirped, but I swear I could hear faint movement near the trees. Then a twig snapped about 5 feet from the generator. Amber clutched my arm. We both froze. I couldn't see anyone, but the feeling of being watched was unbearable. My stomach twisted. "Let's go back inside," I whispered. As we turned toward the door, I saw him. The man in the clown mask. He was standing by the shed, half in shadow, head tilted. For a second, we just stared at each other. Then he lunged forward, sprinting straight at us. We bolted inside and slammed the door shut. My hand shook so badly I couldn't get the lock to turn. We ran down to the basement and hid behind the bar in the far corner. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely hear Amber's breathing, fast and shallow. Then we heard it, a slam from upstairs. The basement door creaked open. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, descending the stairs. Amber started shaking, trying not to cry. I covered her mouth, terrified he'd hear us. The steps stopped near the room's entrance. Silence. I grabbed a beer bottle from behind the bar, ready to swing if I had to. My arms felt numb. Minutes passed like hours. Then sirens. The faint wail of police cars outside. The man shifted, like he'd heard them too. I stood up, ready to attack, but tripped. I hit the floor hard and looked up, right into that clown mask. He just stared, no blinking, no breathing. Then, without a word, he turned and bolted upstairs. The back door slammed again. I sprinted up after him and let the police in. They searched the yard and the woods, but found nothing. To this day, they never caught him. Amber and I started spending more time at her house after that. I couldn't go down to that basement alone anymore. Even now, sometimes I swear I feel that same cold, heavy stare on me when I walk by the window at night. And I'll never forget the last thing I saw before he ran. That clown mask looking down at me as I lay helpless on the floor. I don't even know why I'm telling this, but it's been haunting me for years. Maybe someone should know. Every October, the county fairgrounds on the edge of town turn into Nightshade Hollow, a haunted attraction everyone raves about. That year, my friends Eli, Marcus, and Skip convinced me to go. I thought it would be fun. I didn't know it would be the last Halloween I ever felt safe. While waiting in line, we passed a display of old props, newspaper clippings, and photos from past Halloweens. One headline stopped me cold. Apparently, decades ago, a faceless man terrorized the outskirts of town every Halloween. No one ever caught him. Some said he vanished. Others swore he returned every year, wandering near the fairgrounds. Skip laughed. "It's just a story to scare tourists," he said, flipping through the photos. But I couldn't shake that image of the blank, featureless mask staring at me. Something about it felt alive. We started with the haunted house. It was fine. Cheap props, a few jump scares, laughter bouncing off the walls. The smell of fog machines and fake cobwebs filled the air. I tried to laugh along, but I kept glancing toward the corn maze, already feeling uneasy. Then we hit the maze. At first, it was fun. Narrow paths, corn brushing our arms, the smell of dirt and hay, cool October air. Our laughter echoed, warped by the stalks. But after a few wrong turns, the laughter died. The maze swallowed all sound. I don't know how long we'd been walking when I noticed the air had grown heavier, thicker. The fog machines from the haunted trail wafted in, mingling with the earthy smell of corn. And then, I felt it. The scarecrow actor appeared, or so I thought at first. Tattered overalls, a burlap sack over his head, screaming in a voice that didn't sound human. We screamed back, half laughing, half terrified, and ran. I was last. He was right behind me. My lungs burned. My heart pounded so hard I thought it would explode. I could hear more than just his footsteps, faint rustling behind me, too light to be the scarecrow. Shadows seemed to twist in the corners of my eyes. I sprinted blindly, trying to keep track of Eli and Marcus, but the maze had swallowed them. And then silence. I froze. The corn whispered around me, brushing my arms like cold fingers. Not a single voice in the maze. I called their names over and over, my voice swallowed by the stalks. Then something grabbed my wrist. Hard. I screamed. The gloved hand felt impossibly strong. I struggled, yanking my arm free. The figure stepped out. Heavy coat, black gloves, black jeans, and a plain black mask. Featureless. Nothing. I swallowed a scream. He tilted his head slowly. I don't know why, but I felt like I was staring into something alive, something calculating. I bolted. The maze felt endless. Footsteps pounded behind me, heavy, deliberate. At times, I could swear there were two sets, one soft and light, echoing my movements. The corn seemed to twist in the shadows, forming narrow corridors and dead ends I hadn't noticed before. My lungs burned. My arms bled from the stalks. I finally burst into the clearing at the edge. An employee in an orange vest looked at me, alarmed. "We don't have anyone wearing that kind of outfit," he said, frowning. I called Marcus. He said they'd search for me, then gave up, now on the haunted trail. I promised to meet them there. The trail began at the edge of the woods. Fog drifted between the trees. Speakers played screams and chainsaws. It was perfect Halloween ambience, except I didn't feel safe. Leaves crunched underfoot, but sometimes the sound didn't match my steps. Shadows moved in the corner of my eyes, too fast, too precise. And then I saw him. Same black coat, same blank mask, standing in the middle of the trail, completely still, waiting. I opened my mouth to yell. He sprinted. Branches whipped my arms. Fog clung to me, cold and damp. I could hear whispers, my name, soft and mocking, carried by the wind. My heart raced. My mind screamed to stop. My legs refused. I ducked behind a tree, chest heaving. Silence. And then, footsteps. Slow. Circling. My breath caught. Every instinct screamed danger. I peeked nothing. I stepped forward, and he was there, feet away, shoving me to the ground. I scrambled up, running blindly. Behind me, a hollow laugh echoed, cold and low. The trail twisted endlessly. Fog thickened. Shadows stretched and lunged. I could feel him closing in, silent but heavy. I ran until my legs were burning, lungs screaming, until I stumbled into the clearing at the entrance. Gone. Vanished. I demanded to see a manager. Pale, shaking, he said, "We don't have any actors in that costume." The police were called. No marks. No proof. Nothing. By the time I found my friends, they thought I'd just gotten lost. Seeing me like that, he didn't know what to say. I haven't been back to a haunted attraction since. But every October, when the air turns cold and the leaves fall, I dream of that black mask, standing at the edge of the corn, waiting. Shadows twitch, fog thickens, and I hear the faintest whisper of footsteps, though the field is empty. And sometimes when I wake, I feel gloved fingers brushing my wrist. Even though I'm alone, I've learned one thing. Some legends don't stay dead, and some masks never come off. This happened a long time ago, back when I was around 12. My best friend Anthony and I had been looking forward to Halloween all week. We had our costumes ready, pillowcases for candy, and that buzzing excitement that only comes once a year when the air is cold and every house glows orange. That night started like every other Halloween we'd ever had, running from house to house, comparing how much candy we'd gotten, joking around. We must have hit at least 20 houses before we decided to go to the older section of our neighborhood, the one our parents always told us to avoid. The houses there were spaced farther apart, some of them old and quiet with porches that looked like they hadn't seen kids in years. We knew we weren't supposed to go that far, but being 12, we figured we could handle it. We were just going to grab a few more houses and then head home. The first house we went to in that part of the neighborhood was surprisingly nice. An older lady opened the door, smiling warmly, and even invited us in for a second while she grabbed more candy. Her house smelled like cinnamon and vanilla, and she gave each of us several full-size Hershey bars. We thanked her and walked out feeling lucky. It felt like the trip had paid off already. We didn't make it far before things changed. As we were walking toward the next house, a man suddenly ran out from behind a nearby church, screaming. At first, we just stood there, kind of frozen but laughing, thinking it was someone pulling a Halloween prank. But he didn't stop. He ran straight toward us, yelling nonsense, his voice cracking with something that didn't sound like a joke. He grabbed my pillowcase and tried to yank it away. It happened so fast, I didn't even know what to do. Anthony, without thinking, swung his candy bag as hard as he could and hit the guy. You could hear the candy bars inside smacking against him. Anthony hit him a few times until the man finally let go and backed away, swearing under his breath before taking off into the darkness. We stood there for a long minute, stunned. Neither of us said a word. Then we picked up my bag, brushed off the dirt, and started walking back toward the main part of the neighborhood. We didn't feel like trick-or-treating anymore. I called my mom on my little flip phone and asked if she could pick us up. She sounded confused, but said she'd be there soon. When she arrived, we both climbed in the car and started explaining what had happened. She didn't seem to believe us at first, thought maybe it was just an older teenager messing around. But when she saw we were both pale and shaking a little, her tone changed. We got home around 10 p.m. My dad was watching TV in the living room, and we told him what had happened. He just said something like, probably just some drunk guy or someone playing a prank, and told us to calm down. We started sorting through our candy on the coffee table, trying to laugh it off. Then there was a knock at the door. My dad went to open it, assuming it was a late trick-or-treater. But when he opened the door, there was a man standing there wearing a Michael Myers mask and a mechanic's jumpsuit. My dad chuckled awkwardly and said something like, "You're a little late, aren't you?" and dropped some candy into the man's bag. But the man didn't move. He didn't say a word. He just stood there, staring past my dad into the house, staring directly at me and Anthony on the couch. My dad frowned and said, "All right, that's enough, buddy," and shut the door. The man didn't knock again. We figured he'd just move on. But a few minutes later, I peeked through the front window, and he was still standing there on the porch, completely still, just looking at the house. My dad noticed and finally locked the door. None of us said much after that. Around 1 in the morning, we were getting ready to go to bed when we heard another knock. Slow, steady, like whoever it was didn't care that it was late. My dad told us to ignore it. Probably kids messing around again. Anthony and I went to my room and tried to watch a movie to take our minds off it. About 20 minutes later, Anthony suddenly said, "Mute it." When I did, I heard it too. The sound of leaves crunching in the backyard. I walked to the window and moved the curtain just a little. What I saw made my heart stop. The man in the Michael Myers costume was sitting on our swing set, slowly swinging back and forth, looking directly at my window. For a few seconds, I just stared, trying to convince myself I was imagining it. But the way the swing creaked, the way his head turned slightly as I moved, it was real. I ran to my parents' room and told my dad. He got up quickly, but when he looked out the window, the man was gone. The swing was still moving, though. A few minutes later, we heard a knock at the back door. My dad grabbed a flashlight and went downstairs, but no one was there. He looked shaken now, more than before. Then, my mom screamed from upstairs. Anthony and I followed my dad up, and when we got to the bedroom, the man in the Michael Myers mask was standing at the foot of the bed. My mom was pressed against the headboard, frozen. My dad lunged at him, yelling for us to call the police. We ran downstairs, grabbed the phone, and dialed 911. I told the operator that a man in a mask was in our house. My voice was shaking so badly I could barely get the words out. She told us to stay on the line and that police were on the way. We heard a struggle upstairs, my dad shouting, and then the sound of something heavy hitting the floor, followed by a window sliding open. When Anthony and I ran back upstairs, my dad's nose was bleeding, my mom was crying, and the man was gone. He'd jumped out of the window and disappeared into the night. The police arrived about 20 minutes later and searched the whole house, the yard, even the woods behind it. They didn't find anything. No footprints, no mask, no sign of forced entry, nothing. That was the last Halloween I ever went trick-or-treating. Even now, I sometimes think back and wonder if the man in the Michael Myers mask was the same one who tried to grab my candy earlier that night. It's something I'll never really know, and honestly, I'm not sure I want to.